Hey guys, Dwayne here. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about post-traumatic stress disorder and our responses to it. I think the first thing that we have to really acknowledge through this is that we've been through a significant emotional trauma. And as a result of that, anytime we have an interaction with our ex, there is going to be this response that's basically going to manifest itself as a PTSD response. And it's normal, and I want to talk a little bit about how ways to cope with it. But one of the things before I really get into it is what I want to say is that it does get better with time. And the reason I mention that is I know in my situation, it felt like this was going to take forever. I know there was a lot of times where it just, I was having incremental improvements, but they weren't really significant, and it felt like I was just stuck in this quicksand of despair and couldn't get through it. And what I want to say is it does get better, and the more you learn about this, the better it gets. All right, so how does this happen? Bottom line is, anytime we have an interaction with the ex, it's going to happen, right? So if you have an upcoming meeting, medical appointment, school appointment, events you have to go to, there's going to be anxiety and stress associated with that right off the bat. Now, what I'll tell you is that a good way to prove, I guess, that you have this problem is if you know that you have a school function that your ex is going to be at and you need to be at, and it makes you feel anxious. There you go, right? Because you don't want to be around this person, you don't want to engage with it, you don't want to deal with the shenanigans, you don't want to deal with their gaslighting, their triangulation, all the different things that they're going to do, or may do, because that's the other problem is they're unpredictable. You never know what they're going to do, so your mind is racing, trying to figure out what's going to happen. The next thing is, and this one's really crazy, and this one actually kind of blew my mind, is seeing the other person in their car, or seeing a car like theirs. I mean, you're driving down the road and you see if they have a silver car, boom, a silver car drives by, and it appears to be the same make and model, and you have that surge of adrenaline and the anxiety and stress and that panic attack that comes from it. And it does, like I said, it doesn't even have to be their car. It could be a car that just reminds you of them. Now, and what I'll tell you is that I had that same problem, and now there still is a response, but it's not the way it was before. I mean, I used to get, and it doesn't even make sense, but I used to get, I basically have a mini panic attack, and it's not like I was going to interact with them or her. It's not like we were going to pull over and have a conversation. It was just, for whatever reason, seeing them causes this flash of panic that it is really annoying. But again, guys, it's normal. The other thing that's happened with me is running into your ex in person at a store. Now, fortunately, I've only had this happen, I think, maybe once or twice. And the one nice part about this is you don't have any time to think about it. So it just, boom, it's there. You have to deal with it. And if you have your coping skills in effect, and you have some time under your belt on this, you can actually fake that one pretty easy. In a lot of ways, those running into people in person is a little bit easier, because you're not anticipating it, so you don't have that pre-anxiety coming into it. The last one I had was my daughter and I were out shopping for a bathing suit for her for a party during the summer, and the next thing I know, there she is talking to us, and it's like, you got to be kidding me. Now, one thing I'll tell you is, okay, so in our situation, now, at least for me, now maybe you're different, but what I'll tell you is, if I was at a store and I saw them, one, I look to see if I see their car so I don't have to mess with it. But if I ran into that situation, if I heard them or whatever, I would leave. I would go someplace else. Now, somebody like this, they're going to take every opportunity they can to interact with you, to try to talk to you, to try to emotionally manipulate you, or just to try to get you, to suck you back in. Now, the last thing that I've had an issue with is going to locations that we used to go to in the past. Now, what I'll tell you, and I've said this with all this stuff, is as you continue with this, it does get easier with time. Okay, so there's a few ways to cope with this, and the first thing to talk about, like with the location, is just stay away from it, right? If there is anything that you do that causes you to have an emotional response or a post-traumatic stress disorder response, and you have the control to not put yourself in that situation, then don't do it. So if there is a location that causes that, just don't go there. As you get better with this, there will be a time where you will be able to do that, and it won't cause you that emotional trauma. And when you get to that point, then you can make an effort to make new memories to basically overwrite those old memories. Okay, in the situation where that's not an option, your main thing is minimize contact with the ex. If there is any way that you can minimize that contact, you need to do it. Now, fortunately for me, for whatever reason, because I didn't really know what I was dealing with in the beginning, but I knew that interacting with her wasn't a good thing. So I made a point to make sure that the drop-offs, there were no pickups. Everything was drop-offs, and we did our transitions at the school, and during summer, we did it as a drop-off. And what I mean by that is, we don't get into a situation where one of us pulls up and you're waiting for the other person to send the kids out or come out or whatever. Because that's the problem I had. I would pull up, I'd have to text her, I'm here, because it got to the point that I didn't even get out of my car because she was, the smear campaign and the accusations were going on. So right off the bat, I'm like, set that up. And then initially when we even had temporary orders on our first orders, I had it written in to where, basically I had it written into where she couldn't come out of the house. But bottom line is I was thinking of ways to minimize that contact. So if you're in the process of developing your court order, then I would highly encourage you to think of unique ways to minimize direct one-on-one contact. So if you can do transfers, like I said, where it's at school or daycare or something to where you drop, like if you're transferring it, you drop the kids off at, like for me, I drop the kids off at school when it's her day. At the end of the school day, she picks them up, and vice versa. During the summer, whenever when school's out, it's a drop off. So if they're supposed to be here at 6 p.m., at sometime after 6, they're going to show up. You just leave the door unlocked. Let the kids come in, don't go out, don't interact. Now, in my situation, fortunately, she's never come up to the door. I don't go up to her door. Technically, I guess if that's the case, you could have an issue with that. But, if you can, just write it in saying that it's a drop-off. The other people don't get out of their car, you drop the kids off, you let them go, you see them go in, and, make the kids wave to them saying everything's fine. And and if you don't have that, try to find a way to try to get to that situation. And if you can't do that, then you have to do the hybrid no contact and the gray rock technique whenever you have to interact. And what I would say on that is, if they try to engage in conversation with you, don't do it. Tell them, make an excuse why now is not time, you don't have the time to do it, and say, send me an email on it. Okay, I'd love to talk to you about it, send an email, and I'll get back with you that way. And just minimize that opportunity for them to interact with you. Okay, and you got to mentally prepare for this. You have to, when you know that you're going to have a meeting, you have to get yourself to get your game face on, to be able to play the part, act the act, to where you can deal with it. One of the situations that what I used to do, and I had written about this in a comment earlier, when I used to go to the school functions, I didn't want to be around her, right? So I would show up, and if she was there, then I wouldn't sit with her. Then I would deal with there's a seat right here. Why don't you sit with us? And then the whole underlying comment is like, oh, you're so angry and you're so mad. It's so sad that you won't do that, right? And what I ultimately did whenever I saw myself get stuck in that position is I just showed up early and I did the same thing, right? I got there early. When one of my kids came in, because typically I was there early, they would come sit with me. Or worst case, if you're already sitting down, and if they come in, you look for them. It's like, oh, here, I got a place for you right here. You can sit right here. And it's tough, guys, because you don't want to interact with it. But what I'll tell you is, when you do stuff like that, and then they know that they can't get to you, then they stop doing it. In my situation, she stopped coming to a lot of the events. Now, she'll still show up from time to time and it's unpredictable, but for the most part, she's busy whenever it comes up. And that's, I think that when you not push back, but when you kind of do those subtle little things where you're not giving them that supply, that validating, validating that you're this big mean person or whatever, I think it really, it helps. And I think that played a significant role in my situation in changing that. Now, finally on this, you got to give yourself space and time to deal with this. And what I mean by this is that, you have a connection, a very negative connection with this person. And whenever you have an interaction, there's going to be a residual effect with it. And you have to give yourself the time and space to deal with that so that, you can process it and move on from it. All right, fundamentally, the main thing I need to tell you on this is that your response and all these responses are absolutely normal. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not, you're not broken. You're not, well, you're damaged. I mean, I guess we're all damaged, but what I mean is that you're not having an abnormal response to this. And this isn't something that, you're not, you don't need to be beating yourself up thinking that you don't have the skills or the ability to deal with this. This is a really traumatic experience. What you're going through is absolutely normal. It's not fun, but it's normal. Okay, and the thing is, we've all gone through this. Like I've already said, I've given you some examples of where I've had to go through this. If you've read a lot of the comments from what people, different subscribers and viewers have said, they have a lot of very similar experiences. So you're not really alone on this. But the main thing on this is it lessens over time. Once you start realizing what you're dealing with and you start taking that power back away from the person, it diminishes considerably. I mean, like I said at the beginning of this video, when I look at my responses and my reactions from when I would have interactions with the ex to now, it is like night and day. I mean, I'll still have an issue if I see her in a car or something like that, where it's different. It's not so much a PTSD response now. It's more like just kind of like an anger response, just because you know that this person has negatively impacted your life, your kid's life, and they continue to do it. And there's really, unfortunately, really not a whole heck of a lot we can do until basically the kids are out of the picture and the family court is no longer involved. Now, even after that, you're still going to have issues, and you're probably still never going to, be like, oh, great, I get to hang out with my ex. I mean, that's just, unfortunately, that's the reality of these situations. Okay, guys, I'm going to wrap this video up. If you have some experiences on how you've been able to deal with this and reduce your anxiety and stress, share them in the comments below. I'm sure other people would really appreciate that. If this video means anything to you, give it a thumbs up. If you know anybody else who's going through this and could benefit from this information, please share it with them. And I will talk to you guys in the next video. Take care. Bye.